rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Next item for the agenda is the approval of the agenda. Pleasure of the committee. Motion by Mr. Demotica. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Denon. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Those opposed? And that motion carries 5-0 with Mrs. Teal and Mr. Salvatore absent this evening. Next item on the agenda is the student government report. Is someone here from the high school? Good evening.
Hi, I'm Gabby, someone with the Vice President.
Oh, hold on, Gabby. We're going to turn on the microphone. There you go.
I'm Gabby Salmon, Vice President of Student Government.
And I'm Jake Naction, the speaker for student government. From December 1st to the 19th, Adopt a Family went smoothly. We adopted 4 families this year, 2 from BF Norton and 2 from CHS. The families adopted at BF Norton and CHS were ecstatic by the amount of gifts donated.
On January 30th, we will be having our winter ball held at Wright's Farm from 6 o'clock to 11. And on February 10th, we'll be having a blood drive, and 16 and 17-year-olds with parental permission can give blood, and 18-year-olds are eligible to sign their own permission slips. And that's it.
5 months.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice work on the toy drive. Next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. We have approval of minutes, regular meeting 12/11, executive session 12/11, enrollment report 1/1, school police report 12/1, residency truancy report. Pleasure on this consent agenda. Motion by Mr. Fiorillo, second by Mr. Duffy. Any further questions? All those in favor? Those opposed? And that motion carries 5-0. Thank you. Next item is the superintendent's report. Dr. Gordon.
Good evening. First up, we have Mr. Tucker here with some exciting news from Sodexo.
Good evening. Thanks for allowing us to report tonight. Along with me is Emily Conrad, Food Service Manager. I just wanted to recognize the high school. During the month of October, the high school participated in the Healthy School Challenge. Healthy School Challenge is a national challenge basically designed to help students make better choices at the lunch line. And during the month of October, Emily tirelessly calculated all the snacks that the students selected, and also combo meals, whether they bought a meal that had maybe like a nacho chip or something in it, so they were able to get double points. And this is a national competition with over 100 different school districts in the country with Sodexo. And it was over $62,000 donated by manufacturers like Heinz and McCormick and some of the big manufacturers throughout the country. Basically put up the money to help kids make decisions at the register at the lunch line to obviously make a better choice. And that's obviously what we want to do. And Sodexo is obviously a huge sponsor of this. And Cumberland High School, I believe they were in 60, I have it right there. They came in, they came in 63rd place in the country, and they won $500 to the student body for the high school. So, I know Alan was supposed to be here. I don't know if he's there. Do you want to take the check on his behalf?
Sure.
Yes. So here's the actual check, and we're going to hang this up in the cafeteria for the students to see for all the hard work that they did, and the money was owed them, and they can obviously choose to do what they want with it. So, okay. Do you take the picture? Oh, okay. Here we go on the side.
Huh?
Why don't you go ahead and do your other item, thanks.
Did you see him? Give me the check.
There you go. So the next item on the agenda was the 2015 Eat Healthy Rhode Island on March 11th. And Dr. Thornton asked me to speak about this. So every year, last couple of years, it's called Eat Healthy Rhode Island. It's formerly known as the All-State Read, and it's sponsored by the Big Picture of Children's Health. The selected day this year is Wednesday, March 11, 2015. And basically is soliciting all schools in Rhode Island to serve the utmost healthy meal on that day, so that way students can get an idea of what they should be eating, as a child all the way through 12th grade. And just a little bit of history about it. So this past year, Rhode Island conducted the largest per capita and most synergetic celebration of the children's health this country has ever seen. Let's keep the momentum going in 2014 and have the smallest state in the country, Rhode Island, provide the biggest impact on children's health in the country, and then take it celebration to the nation. Due to the outstanding success of All-State Read 2013, this year's program has grown into a new initiative called Eat Healthy Rhode Island, an act of solidarity on behalf of children's health. The objective of this campaign is to educate our young people, nursery through grade 12, on the importance of healthy eating, motivating children to celebrate their health, and to create a community of nutritionally intelligent, educated children who advocate for optimal childhood health. In addition, we're calling attention to the ever-increasing childhood obesity epidemic, as well as the medical problems that our people are facing. Eat Healthy Rhode Island will demonstrate a joint act of support on behalf of our young people. This campaign is seeking support of all the educational institutions, nonprofits, libraries, and community health centers as starting places to develop children's knowledge. Since National Nutrition Month takes place in March, Wednesday, March 12th, has been designated as the day for the event for children preschool to grade 12. Well, there's just a little background. So it's obviously an issue that's taken statewide and hopefully national. So, and this is a Rhode Island-based initiative that they're hoping to take national. So we'll be participating as well.
Questions? No, thanks, and thanks for the generosity.
Yes.
That's awesome.
And obviously that goes hand in hand with what we're trying to do. So.
I appreciate the efforts. Do you find that the students are changing
We do.
behaviors?
It's an interesting question, and we find that I was actually talking to a staff member the other day, and they feel that the change is coming with the younger kids. It's the high school level is kind of used to the older ways, and so as the generations change, and we're starting with the younger kids, we're seeing the bigger impact. And our K through 5 right now, we see a lot more kids selecting salads and healthier options, fruits and vegetables, and so as they grow older, that generation will be the bigger impact.
I wish we could have a picture from back in the day in my cafeteria when you could have Coke and cookies
Yeah.
and ice cream.
Yeah.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you.
And lastly, I have a budget preview for the committee. Our budget's starting to be formulated now. As you know, one area we're focusing on is technology. The first 3 areas I'll talk about briefly are at the high school. First, the budget will be modeling the Chromebooks for the high school next year in the budget. It really has been transformational at the middles, so we're really looking to carry that forward to the high school, so expect that to come shortly. Second, we're looking to revive the TV telecommunications studio. It was in Cumberland High School back in the day. We're going to bring it back. Picture now, if you will, every classroom has a multimedia platform. So not only would have a TV channel on YouTube, you can actually broadcast the news in the morning with students, with adults. It's really a neat idea to bring back to Cumberland High School. So that's in the works. Thirdly, a computer science pathway. We're looking to start that next year. Next year, classes like C++, cybersecurity, Mr. Chandler, apps, gaming. So all on the horizon for the high school starting next year. Lastly, a K-8 technology item, getting more titles in students' hands. As you know, access to good reading materials are limited at times in libraries. there's not technology out there, I can get licenses for students at home and at school and give them access to thousands of titles. The technology actually will track the reader at their level and give them more choices and kind of just show the growth of the student. So all those things are coming in the budget, so stay tuned.
Any questions? Okay, so I have a couple. So with the TV tell, when you bring the budget forward, can you bring us some examples of that? Because it's definitely a really visual thing, so it would be neat if there are other school communities that have one in place that we could.
Yeah, partially this is in Portsmouth, North Kingstown has a good one, West Greenwich has one. So ironically, back in the day when I was involved with one in the 90s, there was a big 3/4 beta, old school type stuff. It's much more trim and modern, actually less expensive now. So we'll typically see a camera 1, a camera 2, a green screen, an office, like a mixing room, if you will. All that's part of the innovation. We'll bring you pictures when we show it to you.
Yeah, or some, if they put them on YouTube, you know, the other school communities, love to see something like that. As far as the Chromebooks for the high school, are you anticipating there to be some electronic, you know, ELA curriculum online? Sorry, kind of was looking for the right words, but are we moving to that year one or pieces of it?
Moving that way, yes, kind of like chicken and the egg. As you know, at the middle school, we did it with Discovery and History at the middles. That was our first foray into that. So I'd say yes. I'm not sure if we've really figured out which place to start yet, but in terms of textbooks, go have to look now as to why buy a textbook when you go to the electronic version, especially like the AP classes and those kinds of things. First, I think it's the Chromebook modeling and talk to our folks around, you know, where our most outdated one. We still know, I have that list still, another 38 titles from high 40s. Still, we have the history department has a lot of antiquated titles. So that's probably where I'm going first.
And then lastly, on the computer science pathway, is that through the Project Lead the Way program?
Right now, not sure if we would go with that route. We've seen other routes that might be more efficient and effective. Either way, right now is still, I think, building the pathway. A lot of it's come out fiscal year 17, 18. And the foundations course online, a lot of it's still kind of being built. Is there other options out there that we may go in the first year to kind of launch it? Certainly C++ is on our mind and other foundational courses. As far as the space, we are looking at maybe being able to take 2 of our more general computer labs offline and have those spaces for the computer pathway rooms.
Oh, just a follow-up on that. So if Project Lead the Way, just because we use that one right now for the biomedical, with the computer science one, are you looking at one now that in year 1 would mirror what Project Lead the Way might be doing, so you're looking to then integrate them in year 2 or 3, or are you looking to stick with this other program?
That's our wonder. Can we marry it in year 2 or 3? Because they're not quite ready yet. So can we get ourselves underway and kind of work into their whole continuum? Right now, they're not really online yet in terms of whole continuum. I would add also probably put achievement sub with that to give you more detail of the flavors and what the options are.
Great, thank you. Next item on the agenda, Chairperson's Report, Funding Formula, and the DEP. I have nothing at this time. I do know the General Assembly will be meeting to talk about the topic of funding sometime in the month of January, so we'll have some more details around that shortly. Next item, reports of standing committees, payment of bills. Mr. DeMonico.
Madam Chair, the Finance Subcommittee did meet on this past Tuesday, and we looked at the bills submitted by the business office. And I would vote to approve payment of bills in the amount of $1,455,937.55, and that passed on committee on 3-0.
Mr. DeMonico moves passage of the payment of bills of $1,455,937.55. Do I have a second? Second by Mr. Dennett. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Those opposed? And that carries 5-0. Thank you, Mr. DeMonico. We have Fiscal Management Subcommittee, I think.
Madam Chair, we report on 2 meetings that we had. The first one was on December 18th. We had a meeting and discussed about purchasing Chromebooks for the elementary schools, which will come up later. We had a discussion with Mr. Chandler about security cameras for the district as well, additional. And we had some discussion about payment of legal services for the district and where we are on that budget item. So we did take a motion to approve paying some bills as well, which will come up on that. And Dr. Thornton and Mr. Mitchell talked about the Chromebooks for faculty and the students at the high school for next year. So that was on the 18th. And on Tuesday, January 6th, we talked about the contract for the communications coordinator, a couple of resolutions regarding the budget transfer, hiring of an interim director of special education, and Chromebooks for the CHS faculty. So they'll come up later on. Thank you.
You've been busy. All right, thank you. Next item is the Policy and Procedures Subcommittee update. Mr. Fiorillo.
Madam Chairman, we did meet on Tuesday night. We discussed amending I-12 to proficiency-based grading, which Mr. Mitchell will actually explain later on the agenda. We also were going to recategorize the FERPA policy for students who have reached the age of majority, which will also be discussed further. We had a general discussion about existing policies or new policies that we want to create. And we had some general conversations regarding a gift policy for administration and faculty, which is in the early stages of that discussion, as well as a policy that Mr. Mutter had always wanted to create regarding not being able to amend the budget and pass the budget in the same night. There'd be some lead time in between. So we'll be crafting some language for that in the coming weeks and months. And that's pretty much it.
Will we call that the Mutter policy?
The Mutter policy, yes.
Nice. Thank you. Next item, Achievement and Communication Subcommittee update. I'll be reporting for Mrs. Teal tonight. They did not meet this past Tuesday, but we'll be meeting, Mr. Mitchell, correct me if I'm wrong, on the 20th, which would be Tuesday, following Tuesday. Thank you. Next item on the agenda, public hearing. We have a reading of 2 amended policies here, and that's it. Yes, is that correct? Do you want to take this over?
Sure.
Mr. Fiorillo.
Madam Chair, I'd like to have the amended policies I-12, K-8 proficiency-based grading, and J-21, FERPA policy for students who have reached the age of majority, read into the minutes.
Can you highlight for me the changes to K-8? And I don't know if this is the appropriate time for Mr. Mitchell to chime in, the grading policy, or?
No.
Let's just highlight it now. That way, if someone wants to provide some testimony around public comment, they can do so.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We just made one very minor change. The policy included language about a teacher requirement to load formative assessment information onto Aspen. And since formative assessments are not included in the students' grades, it was really becoming an overly cumbersome process for teachers. So for example, as you know, let's just use the Eureka Math curriculum as an example. Teachers give students an exit slip after every lesson. That is a formative assessment. So as a 7th grade teacher, for example, or a 6th grade teacher, I may have, 80 or 100 students. So that means I would be entering 100 formative assessments every single day. So since the student's grade does not include formative assessments, and because the process was so cumbersome, we were in agreement that we should remove that language that requires teachers to load that data onto Aspen within 5 days. We just simply took, it was like maybe 4 or 5 words from a sentence out of the policy so that The only data included in a student's grade would be the summative assessment information.
Questions, Mr. Duffy?
Those formative assessments, if they're not going to be placed on Aspen, are they going home with the students to the parents so they can still get a general idea in between?
That information is still accessible to parents, and I'm sure that there are some teachers who send a formative assessment information home with students, but teachers will also have that information to share it with, with parents if they would like to see that. But one of the things that we talked about, which I think is really important, we have a responsibility to make sure that we are providing lots of feedback to parents on student performance. So we're going to make sure that there is an ample amount of information in Aspen so that the parents are well aware of how their students are performing as they progress through the trimester.
Anyone else? Next policy is J21, the FERPA policy. Mr. Fiorello, do you have some highlights for that, what the changes were?
The policy is not being changed at all. We're just changing, it was under the heading of personnel, and it's completely a student-driven policy. So it's just being changed to the student code of J21. That is the only change.
I'm not sure that wasn't Mrs. Teal's mistake at all.
I think it was just a leftover from days.
Oh, the old days?
Yeah, we'll blame the old days.
We just didn't move it. Thank you very much. All right, so we have the K-8 proficiency-based grading, and then the J21 FERPA policy for students who have reached the age of majority. Would anyone this evening like to speak regarding any of those policies? No? Going once, going twice. Okay, so I call the public hearing closed at this point. And the next item on the agenda then is comments from the public. Is anyone here to speak on any matter? No? It's too chilly out. Next item, new business, camp invention presentation.
It's my pleasure to introduce our PTO president on behalf of Norwood, Ms. Bernardo, and her team for the camp invention presentation.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you having me here tonight. Let's see. I have my own copy here too. But I'm going to talk about two things. I'll try to be as brief as possible, not to inundate you with too much information. This presentation will give you the highlights. I gave you all packets with more detailed information in case you need help falling asleep tonight. Camp Invention, the first part that we're going to be talking about, is a STEM summer camp provider. They've been around since 1990. They're a nonprofit organization, and what they do is they bring in STEM summer camps into school districts. So they're a nonprofit, so it's free to schools to host. They are aligned with the Common Core state standards. What they do is they actually hire, train, and compensate our own teachers within our own district. So one thing I think that is really great about this camp is that it's a really high quality science-based camp that we're bringing in town into our own schools, being staffed by our own teachers, parents, to serve our own students. So it's a little bit unique. And Mike, I don't know if it's possible to look at it with one very brief video, or if not, I can skip through it. It was right after that, or right before that. That, yes. It's very brief. This gives you just a little snippet of the elementary level school camp.
Turn on the creativity, invention, investigation, and a lot of inspiration. It's the Illuminate program and Invention. You'll receive personalized challenges from a national event with main inductees and go behind the scenes with collegiate inventors, competition students, and their inventions. Then take your inventive spirit to the top of a superstructure, launch into space, and deep dive into waters to explore bioluminescence and inducting. The Camp Invention
Thank you. So the elementary level camp is open to kids in grades 1 through 6, and we were looking to house it over at BF Norton School. What I did do is I did set a tentative date for the week of June 22nd. I did that right away because in doing that I was able to secure a student scholarship for any families that may have a child in need. The student to staff ratio is 1 to 8. It's a 1-week program, Monday through Friday. It's 6.5 hours per day. They provide pretty much everything that we need, all of the materials, all of the advertising. The kids all get t-shirts. They give you everything you need to run the program. They even take all the registrations and payments as well, so they do all of that. The base level cost is $245 per camper for the week, with many other opportunities to receive discounts. They have an early bird discount. If they register by the end of March, they would get a $25 discount. They also do multiple sibling discounts. Actually, full-time district employees, if they have children of this age group, there's also a district employee rate as well. We do have one scholarship already secured for a camper. There's also some grant funding, some grant writing I can do to secure additional funds to offer financial assistance to people in order to be able to afford the program. The staffing needs for 35 up to 39 students. Base level would be 1 director, 2 instructors, 2 leadership interns. This would be actually students from grades 10 through 12. Thinking along the lines of perhaps OCYL Youth Council, started to speak with Liz about that over at OCYL, or high school students. Parent volunteers can certainly be involved. And then CIT is counselor in training. So this is for kids in middle school, in grades 7 through 9. If they have an interest in taking the program, it would be a little bit of a different spin for them because they would actually be partners with the leadership interns and helping actually run the program. So they'd be participating but also leading. And so they would actually be able to participate in the program at a reduced cost. So again, just to give you a very, very brief overview, there are 4 activity-oriented modules. They are grouped by age. You're talking about kids from grades 1 through 6. So they do group them up by age groups to make sure that they're teaching them at their level. Each day's activity will build on the previous, so it's completely reinforced each day till they come to the end of the week. More details on each of those modules is in your packets if you wanted some more specifics on what kinds of activities the kids would be doing. Just a general idea of a typical day. They do their checking in. They go to base camp where they'll be separated into their groups. They focus on 2 modules. They take a break with a snack. Half of them have lunch while the other half get to do some fun, have some exercise and get their energies out. Then they go through 2 more modules for the second half of the day. And that's okay. That's good enough. No problem. The invention project. So something that's a little bit newer for them is the middle school project. This camp is a little bit different. It's a little bit more, the focus is on inventing, coming up with an idea, how would you market it. They also include in this program the building and programming of mini robots. Those robots the kids actually get to take home and keep at the end of the program. So that's a little bit different. It's a little bit more self-directed. The kids have a lot more self-direction in what they do with the program for that week. It's a little bit more expensive due to the robots. It's $300 per camper as a base level. But they also have those opportunities to receive, early bird discounts and multiple sibling discounts and that sort of thing. So it's a little bit more, but so they do have that take home at the end of the week. The staffing needs is a little bit different. 15 to 19 campers would be, instead of a director and then an instructor, that teacher would be both the director and the teacher for that particular camp. They would also need 1 leadership intern. 15 to 19 is probably a realistic goal for year 1. It's hard to know, especially with middle school, what the interest level is going to be. But as the numbers increase, then we would have to increase the staffing needs from that point on. The thought for middle school was to possibly house it at North Cumberland Middle School, spread the camps out across the district. It'd be good having all of our kids going all over town. Again, this is a very brief program overview, but the more specific details of the different elements of their week are included in your packets. And their day is structured a little bit differently. So they do their check-in, they begin in their hangout space to kind of get their day started, and they end up with 90-minute breakout sessions where they do their creating and inventing and that sort of thing. And they also do have those opportunities for physical activity all related to the topics that they're covering. So I just think something that's unique about it is something that we're bringing right here to our town for our kids, and it's including everybody on every level, from teachers to parents to the kids. So I think it's a unique opportunity for collaboration, right within town and bringing everybody together. So that's the camp convention piece. But if you have any questions about it, if I can answer any questions, please just let me know.
Questions on camp convention, Mr. DeBonica?
If more children sign up, are there opportunities to have more locations in town?
That could be a possibility. I mean, if it's very popular, and we have a lot of registrations and spreading it out, that is certainly a possibility that we can talk about. Yeah.
Mr. Duffy?
I'm confused, but so are you looking for our approval to do this in the schools for this year, or is that, because it's just a presentation?
Just informational.
Just informational. So is this something that, it's informational, is this something that's going to happen, we're just being informed about it? It's already been approved to be done?
Yes,
Okay, right. I just wasn't sure, thank you.
No, absolutely. And so the promoting of all of this will be taking place very shortly to make sure all the families are aware that it's coming. Yep.
Mr. Denman?
If you're going into 6th grade, can you pick either one?
So yes, you can actually do both if you wanted. You could choose, if you were in 6th grade, you would be more on the leadership side of things. So you would be participating in the program, but you'd also be assisting the younger kids and helping them as well. So this is a little bit of a different spin.
You could go to your BF or that's
Because they'll be housed, they'll be done on different weeks.
okay.
We hadn't secured a date yet for our middle school, but it will not be the same week. So there'll be 2 separate weeks. So if you did have a middle schooler interested in both programs, a 6th grader would be, and a 7th grader would be just as interested, I believe, in the program as like a 4th and 5th grader. So yes, they would have the opportunity to choose either or do both. They would have the opportunity, yeah.
Mr. Fiorillo?
How many students, elementary grades would be,
Maximum is about 110.
can BF Norton handle that many?
It's possible, but at the same time, as Mr. Monica said, if we had larger numbers, we could look at spreading it out amongst more than one school.
I'm just curious, Dr. Masterson, if the program would be better off for the Ls at McCourt because it's already a larger space and there's usually staff there for different summer programs.
I defer with where Ms. Bernardo would like to run it. It's a program that we're working with her on. It's definitely a program that she's doing, so I want where her comfort zone is. And typically, McCourt is also a school that hosts the ESY program for special education. We also are also in contact with the United Way to host the Leadership Academy again as well. So we like the intention of the program school, but we want to make sure that we can also be supportive of what the program needs are from Ms. Bernardo. So we did have an early meeting about this, and Mrs. Bachman was also part of it. So it was a discussion we had, and we thought Cumberland for the first year might be the better choice. But Ms. Bernardo and Mrs. Bachman have a scheduled meeting for a tour next week to see if that really will meet their needs.
Is there any cost to the district?
None.
Oh, I love that.
No. So when my kids did camp convention a long time ago, it was open to a broad community. Is this limited to Cumberland students?
Cumberland School District students, yes.
Okay. And at the time, back in the day, you had to bring a lot of your own supplies and materials because there was a lot of like that creative building, so they'd have you be bringing, everyday egg cartons and the next thing. Is that still part of the requirements of the program?
No, they said they supply all materials that the kids would need for the week.
That's helpful.
Yeah.
And as far as the leadership interns or the position postings, will you be posting those somewhere?
Yes, because I definitely am going to need to be reaching out to those students in those grade levels to see if they're interested in that. And I don't know if they do something over the summer, would that count towards their community service, hours? But they could probably get a jump start on that just by participating for that week.
Yeah, and you may also have some young college kids coming home looking for a week's opportunity to put an internship on their
Yes,
resume.
sure, yes, very much open to also college level students as well if they're available. Yeah, absolutely, that'd be great.
Anyone else? Thank you.
The second part, which we will be brief, and this is why I have my crew with me, is fifth grade STEM initiative. I had spoken initially to Mr. Todd Thompson and Mr. Damana at BF Norton about a company called Modular Robotics. We know, of course, we all know that the STEM initiative at the high school is big right now, and the thought of trying to introduce students to that concept, even at its most basic level, the younger they are, the better. They have a classroom kit called Cumberland. What my kids have here today is a slightly more complex system that they make called MOS, but it's very similar in concept. They're going to demonstrate some of the things that these little robots can do. But what has happened is I had spoken to Mr. Thompson to see if he might have interest in introducing a very basic robotics program into the fifth grade, if there was time for such things in the curriculum these days. And I think with Cubelets, because of their simplicity, I think that it's not overly complicated and it's something they can fit into their curriculum. And knowing that everything comes with a cost, we wanted to see if we can find a way to pay for it. So we applied for a grant through Dassault Systems. My husband actually works there. They're located in Johnston, Rhode Island. They're a huge tech company. And what they like to do is give schools micro grants to help kickstart STEM initiatives within their school systems, which we were granted that grant. And we're just waiting for those funds to come through. And we have enough to get 2 classroom kits, which is going to give plenty of cubes for the kids in 5th grade. They're going to be offering that 1 classroom at a time, and I think we're only at about 17 or 18 kids per 5th grade, so we'll have plenty of cubes for them. One nice thing about Cubelets is that they have no wires. They don't need to be programmed. Each little cube is a robot in and of themselves, so you just click them together and they all do different things. Some of the cubes are inputs, some are outputs, so they can respond to light, temperature, heat. They have proximity sensors to be able to avoid objects. It's kind of a click and go kind of a thing. One reason I like the Cubelets in the thought of the classroom a little bit more than the more complex system, and it does not come with the ball bearings. Not that they're dangerous or anything like that. They're not magnetic themselves, but if you happen to drop it, they go everywhere. Yes, so if you want to put that on the floor and give those some ideas of how it works. Like I said, these cubes are much smaller. Cubelets are chunky and they're bigger. Let's see if they work. Because now the pressure's on, kids. Go ahead. Turn it on.
The wheels might not start correctly because the motors isn't working right. Because one of the motors isn't working correctly.
Amanda, turn yours on.
Okay.
So there's a lot of different things that kids can do with these. They do also have apps for iPads and iPhones and that sort of thing so that they can do some communication, through your electronic devices with these robots. Same with the Cubelets, they both, work the same way. So they're very user-friendly, they're very intuitive. They do come complete with free lesson plans for teachers and activities for them to utilize in the classroom. Mr. Fiorillo, you had asked this question, so I did find out. Yes, there are no recurring incidental expenses. When you purchase the kits, that's all you need. They're extremely tough, they're extremely durable. You can break them, they're not gonna break. You can actually wipe them down with disinfectants, as long as you don't dump them in water. Yay, it's working. In the event that there is a need for a particular cube, if a cube does need replacing, or if there's a need for an additional cube, you can purchase cubes individually. You do not have to buy full kits every time you need something. the stipulations for the grant would be that Mr. Thompson will need to go to Dassault Systems to do a brief presentation on the implementation of the program in the schools. One nice thing, go ahead. Sure, yeah, go ahead. Do it, yeah. However, if we find that this pilot is successful and if the district likes what they see with the QBLET system, we do have the opportunity to write further grants from this company to possibly expand the program. Whether that would be trying to thread it through all 5th grades throughout the district, or I know that the middle school is starting their STEM program with Lego robotics. So perhaps 5th grade makes more sense. It's a little bit more simplistic in nature, a good base and foundation, and then to get them introduced to those concepts so they can be ready for the more complex programming and things like that that come with the Lego kits. The other thing about Dassault Systems is that while they don't give grants to purchase Lego robotics themselves because they have contracts with Legos, they have offered free programming. So if the middle school requires any kind of programming for their Lego kits, I can speak with them about what their needs are and see if it's a match and perhaps get some free programming for them. Yeah. And another thing with the cubelets, which I find just interesting, is that they do have brick adapters. So you actually can combine Legos and cubes together to work together and to expand the kits and expand the opportunities and possibilities. So, and thank you to all of you. Yes.
Question.
Go upstairs. You go up the stairs. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Um,
You can ask questions while she goes out there.
Ms. Bernard,
Yes.
how much is each kit?
Approximately $1,000 per classroom pack.
And you're starting with one?
Well, you can start with one, and it may have been enough, but we wrote the grant so that we could get 2. So we'll have to see how that goes. The kits are actually ready to ship. So I'm just waiting to get a PO for it and process everything. But once they come in and Mr. Thompson has a chance to go through and see how they work, so based on how many kids in a classroom, I believe one classroom pack is good for 15 to 20 students, so having the 2 kits might be more beneficial to have kids on hands-on more quickly. But we will know that better once we start using them. But it might depend on the size of the individual classroom, how many students are actually utilizing one educator pack at a time.
So the kids would have, each student in the class could have an opportunity to work with it as opposed to watching someone else build it.
Exactly. That's the other thing that's nice about it. It's, we do have the Lego Robotics After School program, and so we have teams of kids, like 5 kids. So they do work together collaboratively, and we can still do that with the cubes. But what's nice with the cubes is that you can distribute them out, and all the kids have their hands on these like right away, and they work. They can work together or individually. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Can I just say one thing, Madam Chair, please? I've had a chance to meet with Jen a few times, and anyone that knows her, knows that she has done a tremendous amount of work at BF Norton, and now obviously that's expanding district-wide. But I just think this is a wonderful opportunity for our students. Camp Invention sounds like such an exciting thing. So, I just want to publicly thank Jen because it obviously takes a tremendous amount of time and effort to write a grant, and she has also spent a tremendous amount of time and effort in pursuing this Camp Invention initiative. So thank you so much, Jen. We really appreciate all that you're doing for our district.
Thank you.
You don't want a picture of my face. Mr. DeMott is getting a lesson.
That's great.
So not to add to your plate, Mrs. Bernardo, but Maker Faire is looking for sites to do their Maker Fairs. And I'll forward you that information. I think the development opportunity is the end of January. They're looking for school districts to partner with to do Maker Faire, which is another sort of hands-on, STEM type.
That'd be great. Thank you. Appreciate that. You can move on whenever you need to.
Next item on the agenda. So we have, we did camp invention and then Healthy Youth Initiative mini grant presentation.
That's Julie from the high school for our next presentation.
Hi, I'm Carolyn Julie, the Interdisciplinary Coordinator for Unified Arts at Cumberland High School, and I thank you for inviting me to come and present this wonderful mini grant that we received from RIDE for Healthy Youth Initiative. And I have to laugh because it's referred to as a mini grant, but it's $45,000 and $4,500, excuse me, which to me, $4,500 is a lot of money. So, I teamed with our two phys ed teachers, PE health teachers, Liz Philo, who couldn't be here tonight. She had a family obligation, and Mr. Smith, who is one of the wrestling coaches, go-goers, so he had a meet tonight, so he couldn't be here. But what I plan to do is just give you a quick overview, and what we'd like to do, if it's okay, is be invited back after we've done the grant so you can see the outcomes with the wonderful things that they're doing. So we know that there's a federal mandate to cover sexually transmitted diseases or sexually transmitted infections. And this grant will focus on the grade 9 health curriculum with a little bit of review in grade 10. The expenditures are currently on order, and we hope to teach this unit in March. And the items that we're purchasing are STI kits, birth control method kits. Some of the videos that we are getting are lab aids, STD transmission and control chemical simulators, and I'd rather have the phys ed teachers, the health teachers, explain how that all goes about. It's very hands-on, interactive. A couple of the videos are STD lifetime consequences, and one of the board games is called the STD roulette game. And we purchase creating materials so that they can do advocacy through the Lindsay Ann Burke dating violence posters, that they construct magazines about prevention of STD and AIDS. And another thing that they're going to do is create visual aids for the classrooms and laminate them so that they can have them beyond just the one lesson or one unit. Also, it will cover speaker fees. However, we've already had one speaker in from AIDS Care Ocean State, and he was free. There was no stipend, but it does allow us to provide that to our speakers. So we're hoping that we could come back in the spring of 2015, and we hope to bring in some students and document the work that we do, and so you can really get a good feel for the benefits of this grant. So, any questions?
Mr. Duffy.
I noticed that the STI test kits.
Yes.
So is that the actual kits? I guess my question is, who has them? Who has the ability to use them or hand them out? Or is that just to show that they're there, or there's something going to be used?
It's a kit where, it was briefly explained to me, and lots of times they'll do it also in science class. And they'll go into a room with certain chemicals, and unbeknownst to the others, somebody has HIV, and they then infect others. And then they go back and they have the kit that allows them to test so that they have that awareness that, and how quickly it can spread.
In a simulated setting.
Simulated.
Okay, all right.
Simulated.
Just-
Simulated chemicals.
No, I clearly understand that. But just when I saw an STI kit, I thought that they were actually kits to test for sexually transmitted.
No, but our speaker did talk about proactive ways to get tested and where to go for things like that. So that's where having people come in from the community and talk is beneficial for the students.
I think that's great. I just, again, I was under the impression it was actual kits, and that if students were looking to do testing of their own,
No,
it just wasn't clear, that's all.
I don't think that
Okay.
we would, I think only medical professionals should be.
Thank you.
Mr. Fierro. Oh, bless you.
Well, I can just imagine the emails that we're going to get. What exactly is included in the birth control method kits?
If I could provide you with detailed information from our health teachers, I don't want to speak out of turn, and I don't have all of that detailed information. Would that be okay?
That'd be fun. Yeah, thank you.
Congratulations on the grant.
Thank you.
So nice. So
Thank you, and I just have to commend these kids on their budding engineer attitude, that even though their robots didn't work in the beginning, they didn't get rattled, they kept plugging along, and that was awesome.
Very nice, thank you. Next item on the agenda, discussion of 2015-2016 school calendar. Dr. Thorpe.
Yes, first time this year, we have just a draft for discussion only of the proposed calendar for next year. In this calendar, places to iPads, you'll see August 31, September 1 for teacher PD days. You see there the Labor Day is later than in some years. You can see here September 3rd for the first day K-9. As you track the calendar forward, you can see we're modeling 2 days of PD in February. So it's still a short February break, if you will, but it's actually one more day of break than last year in the model. I can also tell you by ASCA, the Student Association calendar actually has come out, and they're actually recommending what we have been doing here with the truncated February. So that's a change. In terms of April, we had a lot of discussion over, first I'll back up. Past few years we've been talking about the park testing window. Once that comes out, we'll know better about what we talked about for spring vacation, whether it's March vacation or vacation. We do have now the park testing window, but it's kind of problematic where you really don't want to use people available in March for vacation. So in April, you really have a couple choices. We're currently modeling leaving it where it historically is. If you moved it up a week, just to argue you want to kind of be closer for break from January, it really doesn't make a big difference. So to us right now, it makes more sense to keep the April where it is. We kind of went back and forth on that with different machinations of how you could move April around. So in the end, we thought just have that January to April segment and then have a shorter break after. So that's the just the draft in a nutshell. In terms of end of school, as you can see here, June 14. On average, I think you might get 2 or 3 snow days. So far, we have none, which is good. So in the worst case, you get 3 snow days, you're still in the same week on the 17th of Friday. So happy to take any questions on the calendar. We'll bring it back certainly several times for you. This is just discussion only tonight on the calendar.
Mr. Dennis.
Dr. Thornton, starting school on a Friday for 3 grades, what's the reasoning for that? It just looks weird.
I mean, some years it's Thursday, some years it's Friday. It's just how the calendar falls. I mean, you can certainly wait till the following Monday. There's no real, optimum day to start school.
Or Tuesday then, or it would be after Labor Day.
You could do that. Then you're pushing back into June on the other end. Yeah. And also, some folks often, I think lament about starting, too early in August because vacations are impacted. So in this model, actually, it's starting, a little later than the August piece. But yeah, it's always trade-offs. It's Friday or it's if you want to go earlier, you can do that. And you're going to the latter part of the summer.
Thank you.
Mr. Fiorello.
Dr. Thorne, is this draft on the school website?
I can't tell you right now what it is. Yeah. Maybe. No, it will be as soon as we can take it out, I guess. Excellent.
Mr. DeMonica and then Mr. Duffy. Sorry.
Dr. Thornton, are we going to need 4 weeks of park testing?
Well, right now, with the first year of it and having the technology component to it, our probably say you want to bank on that, although maybe over time with Bob's help and Mike's help, we could truncate the window. As we certainly, as we have Chromebooks come online, I think we could definitely think about having a shorter window. The first year though, it's a learning curve. I think you probably need the whole window.
And will we have full school days during those days for Parkers?
Yes.
The two PD days in February 16th and 17th, is there a reason why we added the second PD day after that holiday? Or is it just because you had to put them someplace?
I think in our conversations, we talked about historically we would have them and how they've been, I think, received. Some of you should have them in June or May, and that seems to be probably the least effective time for PD day. So we thought having two in a row has that momentum component to it. So we thought it's a natural time in February to have them, so put them there. We have one this year on February 17th. I think in hindsight this year, we would Google Ads for training. If we had two, it'd be powerful to have two back to back. So once again, there's no wrong answer there. It's just what you want to get done and just trial and error, really, I think.
The reason I ask is just because when I look at the overall calendar, there's breaks here and there with holidays, and then when you look at end of April to May, it's I think 5 or 6 weeks straight without a break, and that's why I was wondering if it would make sense to take one of those PD days. Not that I want to make the February vacation any shorter, but for myself personally, the 4-day weekends we've had have been good. I mean, that's been a nice break for the kids, and I think that when you look at 5 or 6 weeks in a row in May, that if it was to move there, I was just wondering if that was a thought, that's all.
We certainly could bring it back next time we have it on there. Certainly open to that conversation.
And can you just give me the rationale behind starting, not the Friday issue that Mr. Denon raised, but you have a week of PD, August 31 and September 1? September 1 is PD for faculty staff. That's Monday, Tuesday, right?
Yes.
Orientation day for faculty staff. First day of school for preschool. And then, preschool, elementary, and grade 9. So Thursday and Friday would be the...
Thursday's K-9, or pre-K-9, and Friday's the entire.
Okay. And what did is it RISA? What's their schedule? Do you know when that starts approximately?
I don't have it in front of me, but Mr. Mitchell?
I think the RISA schedule has the school year starting just a few days earlier than us. The reason that we were looking for your support on these dates is because we've been able to get Rick Warmelli for September 1st. Actually, when we first tried to schedule him, and he is, as you know, Madam Chair, an expert on standards-based grading, and several of our educators from the district had an opportunity to hear him, and they all said, we got to get him into the district because he will really, I think, clarify a lot of the thinking for our teachers and parents on this issue. So anyway, to make a long story short, initially we weren't going to be able to get him in here until December, but luckily we were able to get him in much earlier, and we were able to lock in September 1st, so that's where we are right now. So, you know, those professional development days are being driven primarily by getting him in here on September 1st.
Also, that would add to the record, it's a leap year. So we have one extra day in February.
That's good to know. Yeah, so I guess we'll have this on the next agenda. If you have some feedback, provide that to Dr. Dorn, and we'll, if we need to come up with some alternatives, we'll certainly do that. But it sounds like one of the hard dates that we've committed to is September 1 for the PD, so we want to maintain that. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Thanks, Dr. Thornton. Next item on the agenda, discussion and/or vote to approve Resolution SCPR 12, 2014-22, Chromebook and carts, elementary schools. Mr. DeMonica.
Madam Chair, this came in front of the Finance Subcommittee on December 18th. Is the amount of $54,347.50 to purchase 170 Chromebooks and 5 carts for the elementary schools. It is budgeted in the elementary school technology purchases, and it passed on a 3-0 vote to send it to the full committee to award the bid to CDW Government.
Thank you. So Mr. Demotica moves passage of the resolution. Do I have a second? Second by Mr. Denon. Mr. Fiorello. Any further discussion? Mr. Demotica, did you say this was budgeted?
This was budgeted. The money is coming from combined elementary schools technology line items.
And what was it budgeted for previously? I know it's under technology, but was the plan to build? It was for this. Okay. There wasn't an alternative. Awesome. Anyone else? Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion passes 5-0. Thank you, Mr. Demonica. Next item on the agenda. Resolution SCPR 12, 2014-23, building security cameras for the district.
Madam Chair, the Finance Subcommittee again met on December 18th in this matter. This is to purchase additional security cameras for the district, and is a budgeted item in the technology department. And we recommend passage, a 3-0 vote, to award the bid to Dane Tech in the amount not to exceed $22,274. It is a budgeted item.
So we have a motion. Do I have a second? Second by Mr. Denon on SCPR 12, 2014-23. Does this satisfy, Dr. Thornton, the security camera related items that are budgeted, or are there additional ones?
Yeah, those budgeted 22.5.
Perfect.
So buying everything is budgeted this year.
Excellent, thank you. Anyone else? Mr. Duffy?
You mentioned in it that the security cameras, because they're features that needed augmenting, is that this camera's already existing in place and these are higher resolution, or what's the?
Expanding the systems that we have in place now in the areas that have.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Those opposed? And that motion carries 5-0. Thank you. Next item. Discussion and/or vote to approve resolution SCR 2015-01, fiscal 14-15 budget amendment, budget transfers. Mr. DeMonica.
Madam Chair, we discussed this on Tuesday night, and it was for a budget transfer from the out-of-district transportation line item in the amount of $32,757, and that would be transferred to the high school technology equipment line item, where the money will be used to purchase 93 Chromebooks and 152 Chromebook cases, which will allow the district to buy Chromebooks for the remaining high school teachers so they can start the personal development in February. Talking with Dr. Thornton and Mr. Pignano, we are running to the good in the out-of-district transportation line item, so the committee voted 3-0 to send this to the full committee for consideration.
And are you moving passage?
I am moving passage.
Thank you, Mr. DeMonica. Do I have a second on that? Second by Mr. Fiorello, and that's SCR 2015-01. And I probably should have read the others into the record, but this one's a resolution authorizing and empowering the Cumberland School Committee to amend the 2014-15 budget of $59,097,933. So I have a motion and a second. Do I have any further discussion? All those in, Mr. Fiorello.
Mike, the Chromebook cases that we're getting that are additional to the Chromebooks, that was to satisfy Chromebooks that we had bought previously? Right, okay. In case anybody was curious.
Those are the extras. Yeah, it's the question, yeah. Excellent. Nothing else? All those in favor? Those opposed? And that motion carries 5-0. Just for the record, I'm going to read the other two for Linda, and we can share that later. Moving on, I can give you the text for it. But the first one, the SCPR 12/2014-22, it's a resolution authorizing and empowering the school committee to execute a purchase from CDW government of 230 North Milwaukee Avenue, Vernon Hills, Illinois, for 170 Chromebooks and 5 Chromebook carts for the 5 elementary schools in an amount not to exceed $54,347.50. And then the next one was SCPR 12/2014-23. That's also a resolution authorizing and empowering the school committee to execute a purchase from Dane Tech Incorporated of Johnston, Rhode Island, for security cameras and accessories for all 8 schools in an amount not to exceed $22,274. It's my New Year's resolution to be better about the agenda. It's the first meeting. Do it right. Next item on the agenda is discussion and or vote to approve resolution SCPR 1/2015-01, Chromebook for CHS faculty. Mr. DeMonica, okay.
Madam Chair, this kind of goes with the other one above. The Finance Subcommittee did meet on Tuesday, and we approved sending it to the full committee to purchase those Chromebooks for the high school teachers, not to exceed $32,757 to CDW Government of Illinois. And it was for 92 Chromebook devices and 152 detective cases. I move passage.
Mr. D'Amato moves passage of SCPR 1/2015-01, and he read the resolution into the record. And do I have a second? Second by Mr. Duffy. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, that carries 5-0. Thank you. And last, discussion and or vote to approve resolution SCR 2015-02, interim director of special education contract. Mr. DeMonica.
Madam Chair, we talked about this on Tuesday night. As you're aware, our special ed director has taken a leave of absence, and we need to have someone in here as an interim director. And the superintendent has contracted with a group to handle our needs. They came in December and had a couple of meetings with Dr. Caldwell before she left. And we have to have a director here, so the Finance Subcommittee moves to approve the contract for the interim director of special education, SCR 2015-02. It's broken down on a per day diem. It's $500 for a full day and $300 a half a day. And Dr. Bowman wants to...
Just for the record, her name is Dr. Rachel Santa.
And is the duration anticipated to be beyond what Dr. Caldwell's leave is, or approximately upon her return?
Upon the return.
Thank you. And we're legally obligated to have a...
We are.
All right. Okay, so this is a resolution authorizing and empowering the school committee to execute a contract with the Sargent Center of Warwick, Rhode Island for interim special education services in an amount not to exceed $20,000. So we have a motion, and I need a second from Mr. Fiorello. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? And that motion carries 5-0. Thank you, Dr. Santa, to you. Thank you. Next item is discussion and or vote to approve amended contract for communications coordinator.
Madam Chair, we talked about this Tuesday night in Finance Subcommittee. This is to amend the current contract, which expires June 30th, 2015, to increase the amount of time that the coordinator will be spending in the district. And the monies for this will be coming from the salary that we saved in the assistant special ed director's line item. And it will go from $2,000 per month to $3,200 with an increased hours. So the committee has already previously approved a new contract for July 1st, 2015. This is to amend the current contract so they can do additional work for the district. passed in finance on a 3-0 vote, and that one passed.
Mr. DeMonica moves passage of the amended contract for the communications coordinator, and that was seconded by Mr. Fiorillo. Mr. DeMonica, the section that changed was that section 2 compensation. Are there any other changes?
That's the only change. The compensation and actually the amount of hours they would be doing is increased as well.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Those opposed? That motion carries 5-0. Thanks, Mr. DeMonica. Nice.
I feel for Mr.
Next item, discussion and/or vote to approve amended policies I-12 K8 proficiency-based grading and J21 G, that was formerly G10, the FERPA policy for students who reached age of majority. So, Mr. Fiorillo, these were in your subcommittee. Do you want to take it from here?
We already discussed the I-12 K8 proficiency-based grading. I don't know if Mr. Mitchell wanted to add anything. Perhaps your example of the difference between formative and summative would be nice.
Thank you, Mr. Fiorillo. I think the easiest way for me to understand the difference between formative assessment and summative assessment is this. We actually read a book several years ago that really helped me on assessment. Formative assessment is assessment for learning. So it is, and again, a great example of a formative assessment is an exit slip, because teachers will teach a lesson on a given day and then give students a brief assessment, maybe 1 or 2 questions that are somehow related to the learning that took place that day. And the whole goal of giving the assessment is to determine whether or not where students are in their learning. Have they grasped the skills and concepts that were taught on that particular day? So it really informs the teacher. So if students need more instruction to learn what they're expected to learn, then the teacher can maybe take a different approach the following lesson, or focus more attention on what students aren't learning. So again, formative assessment is assessment for learning. That is, the focus is more on helping both teacher and student learn where the areas of strength and weakness are. And summative assessment is assessment of learning. Those are the things that we're most accustomed to, research projects, papers, essays, end of course exams, mid-semester exams, those kinds of things. So anything that is used to actually assess a student's performance where they would get an actual grade of some sort, then that would be considered summative. So, and again, only summative assessments will be included on ESPN.
Thank you, Mr. Mitchell. It did pass in policy, and a vote of 2-0. Mr. Salvatore was absent that night, and I recommend passage now.
Mr. Fiorillo moves passage of the I-12K8 proficiency-based grading policy. Mr. Duffy, did you have a question? I'm sorry. No.
This one time I
As amended, do I have a second? Second by Mr. Denon. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Those opposed? And that motion carries 4-1. Next item on the, and that's with Mr. Duffy dissenting. Next item on the agenda, the J21 G10 FERPA policy for students who reach the age of majority. Mr. Fiorillo.
Yes, we discussed the way it was categorized originally for personnel. We're just going to move into student policy of J21. I don't know if Dr. Thornton wants to explain what FERPA is.
It's home to a shop with that.
Okay.
Actually, no, you know what? We have our lawyers here with that.
Oh, Mr. Adams.
I was going to say,
I'm sorry.
Purpose special ed, that's not me.
Kick Save. It's a federal statute that governs the privacy rights attendant to school records, student records. That's basically what the gist of it is, and there is now a policy that governs or that relates to FERPA, which I must confess I have not read. But that's what FERPA is, and it's a pretty straightforward statute that says you can't really talk about student records to other people other than the student or his parents or her parents, generally. Big picture. Caveat riddle, though, if you wanted me to really go into a detail, there'd be a lot of it depends and caveats.
Nope, your time's up.
Yeah, we just felt it was, made more sense to have it in the student section instead of the personnel section, and I removed the passage. That also passed too.
Thank you. Mr. Fiorello moves passage of J21, no amendments to the policies other than its codification. Do I have a second? Second by Mr. Denon. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? And that motion carries 5-0. Thank you, Mr. Fiorello. We're all set with that. Next item, personnel recommendations. Mrs. Vogel.
So hello. So I have some personnel recommendations for you. First, I have one retirement. I request the advice and consent of the school committee on the retirement of Kathleen Del Sesto, secondary mathematics teacher at Cumberland High School, effective December 19th, 2014. If you remember correctly, at our last meeting, we actually appointed a math teacher. It was my error to have left the retirement off on that same. So she's not, we knew she was retiring and we replaced her with a math teacher. So this isn't a last minute retirement, just so you know.
We're aware. Thank you. Pleasure of the committee.
Make a motion that we approve the retirement of Kathleen Fitzgerald.
A motion. Do I have a second? Second by Mr. Duffy. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Those opposed? That motion carries 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you. I have two resignations for you. I request the advice and consent of the school committee on the resignation of Tina LeMay, elementary teacher at Garvin Memorial Elementary School, which will be effective January 1st of 2015. And I also request the advice and consent of the school committee on the resignation of Alicia Castingway, winter cheerleading coach for the Cumberland School Department, effective January 16th, 2015.
Pleasure of the committee.
Motion to accept.
Motion by Mr. Fiorello. Do I have a second?
Second, Madam Chair.
Second by Mr. DeMonica. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. DeMonica.
On the replacement of Mrs. LeMay, do we have someone in place to take over?
Yes, Ms. LeMay is actually on an unpaid leave this year. There is someone in her classroom, and so there is no stoppage in instruction. This is more of a technical, procedural.
Thank you.
Any further questions or discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? And that motion carries 5-0.
Thanks. I have a few appointments for you. So the first appointment I have is request the advice and consent of the school committee on the appointment of Kelly McPherson, teacher assistant at BF Norton Elementary School, effective January 5th, 2015. Ms. McPherson will be full-time, and she is under the 11% copay under the ICSI. She's actually here. I think she's actually here. We're very pleased. She'll be working with our CHIPS program at BF Norton.
Pleasure of the committee.
Motion Chair, I'll make a motion we approve.
So I have a motion by Mr. DeMonica and Mr. Fiorello. Do I have a second? Second by Mr. Denon. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? And that motion carries 5-0. Congratulations.
While we're talking about people who are in the audience, I request the advice and consent of the school committee on the appointment of Melissa Custer, who we've hired who we'd like to hire as a special ed coordinator for the elementary level for the Cumberland School Department, effective January 12th, 2015. Ms. Custer is a current employee. She works at North Cumberland Middle School currently. So she's a step 9. Currently, she'll receive that $7,000 stipend. We screened and interviewed numerous candidates for this position, and Ms. Custer was quite impressive, so we're very happy to have her join us in the elementary position, and she is over there. She's over here.
Pleasure of the committee. Motion by Mr. Fiorello. Second by Mr. Duffy. Any further discussion? All those in favor? All those in favor? Those opposed? That motion carries 5-0. Congratulations.
I have one more appointment, but since they were both there, I did them separate, I'm sorry. So the last appointment is, I request the advice and consent of the school committee on the appointment of Erin Flanagan, who would be the head cheerleading coach for the Cumberland School Department, effective January 5th, 2015. So there's been no stoppage due to the resignation.
Pleasure of the committee. Motion by Mr. Denon, second by Mr. Duffy. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Those opposed? And that motion carries 5-0.
And lastly, and I'm sorry, I have a leave of absence. Sorry, we've already discussed it, but I request the advice and consent of the school committee on the FML leave of absence of Lisa Caldwell, Director of Special Education for the Cumberland School Department, from January 6, 2015 through approximately February 27th of 2015.
Pleasure of the committee. Thank you, Mr. Fiorello. Motion by Mr. Fiorello, second by Mr. Denon. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Those opposed? That motion carries 5-0.
Thank you.
Quick question, do you know when you'll be bringing spring coaches forward?
So we are in the process. We have interviewed for and made recommendations for the baseball coaches. We are lacrosse coaches, I believe, are being interviewed on the 12th. Please, I think it's January 12th, and so we're in the process. I would say by the second meeting in January, I should have all spring coaches. They start, I think the date's March 6th or something, but we'll have them all before January closes.
Excellent, thank you.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda, school committee comments, school liaison reports. Mr. DeMonica?
Madam Chair, I have one. McCourt Middle School PTO will be meeting next Wednesday. It's been a hot topic on Facebook about the parking situation and parents dropping off children, so if you can attend, please do. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Duffy?
I just wanted to commend the Clef Singers who were at the mayoral inauguration on Sunday, and they were wonderful. And it was also nice to see, it was a marching band from Lusitania Club, but it actually got me thinking that maybe the next time we can be our own marching band, doing that in a couple of years as well. So, thank you.
I also like to say what a great job the Clef Singers did. I also attended their holiday fair that they had at the high school right before Christmas. Janita Ducharme deserves a lot of congratulations on the job she's done.
Agreed.
Madam Chair, I did suggest to Mr. Denon at the inauguration that we buy some CHS sweaters for the Lusitania Club band, and maybe we could make it look like it was us.
Already bringing big hats. Excellent. I just want to thank our communications coordinator for the CHS View Book. I have a few copies here for anyone if they'd like to grab one. It looks great and it's a nice representation of the high school. It's also available electronically on various Facebook pages, and I'm sure at some point we'll put it on the district website if it's not there already. Anything else? Dr. Thornton, do we have an executive session this evening?
No, we don't.
All right. Mr. Fiorello?
I'd like to make a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Fiorello. Do I have a second? Second by Mr. Denon. All those in favor? Those opposed? And we are adjourned at 9:01.